Okay, so today we are going to look at 1.6, which is changing tires. And the dilemma that's brought up in this lesson is that you purchase a brand new truck equipped with some factory installed tires, which are these right here. But it says that you think that they're too small, so you replace them with a new set of tires, and the number on that preset tire, or the new tire, is this. So we'll compare these two tires. So what we're looking for is to see how this will change the accuracy on our speedometer and our odometer. Our odometer is how many miles are on the vehicle, and of course your speedometer is how fast that you are going. So we want to see how just switching our tires from two different sizes would affect that. So in this picture up here, there's a lot of wording going on, but the main thing to get are these 4 bullet points right here, specifically the last two. So every tire that you see will have stuff like this written on the side of it, where you can see it when you're driving by. And all those numbers mean something, and we're going to kind of break down exactly what these numbers mean. So we're going to take the one that are on these tires. So when you buy any set of tires, you're going to see numbers that look like this. So it tells us the P right there stands for passenger tire, so it's going to be on the passenger side of your car. And then its next one that we see is this 245. So if we read right here, it says this 245 is the tire's width in millimeters. So this is your width in millimeters. So the width of a tire, and we're going to see a picture after I go through and explain all this, is basically how thick it is when you go across it. So it's not the height, it's not the length, it's how wide it's going to be. Our next number here is 70, and I'm going to save that one for a second because the 70 represents a ratio. And then this last one right here, this one's an easier one to describe really quickly, and that is going to be the diameter of your tire. The thing to keep in mind is that this is the diameter of the rim, not necessarily the whole tire, but the rim itself. So this is the rim diameter. This is also in inches, so that's 16 inches is the rim diameter. So the one I want to focus on is the ratio that we have here for 70. If you read our little blurb right here, it says that the 70 is the aspect ratio, the ratio of the tire's height to the width reported as a percent. So I'm going to write that here. So our aspect ratio is the height of the tire over the width. And this equals a percentage. So the 70 represents 70%. So one thing to keep in mind with this is that we have our height over our width equals our percentage. We should know the width because it tells us right there what it is. So if we ever want to figure out the height of a tire, we can just do a little algebra here to move our equation around. But the height would equal the width times our percentage, or our ratio here that we get. So we're just kind of moving this equation around. So if we ever want to find the height, which is what we're going to do here in a second, it would be this simple equation right here. So what's going to happen with these kind of problems, we're going to get numbers that look like this, or I guess a set of numbers that look like this. So it's important to know what all of these mean. Of course, you'll have your workbook when you go and do this on a quiz and a test, so it's important to still be able to recognize and know where all of this information is. So really quickly, I wanted to kind of go over this picture that you see, and I kind of talked about it a little bit. So here is our tire width. So like I said, that's how far across that the tire is going to be. And once again, that's going to be represented in milliliters or millimeters. Two other things to see. I talked about the diameter, so it told us that that was 16 inches, but that's just the diameter of this rim right here. It's not the diameter of the entire or the whole tire. What it doesn't factor is the tire height, which is this little piece here and this little piece down here. So each of those are going to be separate. So that's something to keep in mind and make sure that we understand when we go through this next little chart as we kind of break down everything that is given to us. Okay, so in this chart we're going to compare the two tires. So the first one that we have, this P245, that was what was already on the truck. So this was the factory installed. And then this right here is your new tires. So something to keep in mind is that when they make this truck, or when this truck was made, everything was tuned to be with this tire. So everything was set for this tire. So if you change the rims on it, we're going to see how these two differ when we go through and do our math on this. So I'm going to walk through and do the factory installed, and then I'll have you pause, try the new one out, and then we'll talk about those. So with our width, that was something that was given to us. So that is going to be 245, so we don't have to do any kind of difficult math on that. Now it asks our width in inches and gives us our conversion. So if it's 245 millimeters, we are going to divide to figure out how many inches this will be. So when we convert that over, that's going to be 9.6 inches. We're just going to round right there. So next is our aspect ratio, which is 70%. That was already given there to us, so we don't have to do anything there. However, for the height, we are going to have to figure out what that's going to be. So I'm going to write it as the aspect ratio has here. So I'm going to call this we're going to have our height over our width of 9.6 inches equals, and we're going to change this 70 into a decimal, which is going to be 0.7. So we're going to end up doing, like our equation that we discovered on the back side, is that we're going to multiply these with each other. So 9.6 times 0.7, we're going to multiply that together, and we're going to get 6.72 inches right there. Okay, next we're going to get the diameter of the entire, or the whole tire, and it gives us this equation here, which is going to be super important for us to be able to reference. But for the entire, or the whole tire, it's going to be 2 times the height, which we figured out in the problem before, plus the rim. So if you go back to that picture, if you remember, the height is in 2 spots on that tire. So it's basically from the rim to the top of the tire. That represents the height. And then, of course, the rim is given to us. So we have 2 of those times our 6.72 plus 16. So when we multiply all that together, we're going to get 29.44. And then lastly is going to be the circumference, which is 29.44 times pi. So we're going to use the actual pi button to solve this, not 3.14. And when we do that, we're going to get 92.5 inches. So that is the circumference of our factory installed tire. So I want you to pause the video and go through and do our new tire. Go through the same format as I did, and then we're going to compare the numbers that we get from that. Okay, so if we go through on this, on our new tire, this is the results that we're going to get. So our width, as we see, is already going to be bigger because this is going to be a bigger tire. So we go through and do a similar thing to get our width in inches, which is just divided by our conversion. Our aspect ratio is going to be a little bit more, so instead of 70, it's 75. So when we go through and get our height in inches, we're going to do the same thing where we're going to multiply this 11.22 times 0.75. So we have to change 75 as a percent. So this 8.4 is going to represent the height of our tire, and already we should be able to kind of see the difference in the height by almost 2 inches there. In terms of the diameter, again, we can kind of compare and see that's almost 3.5 times bigger, the diameter of it. And then finally we come down to our circumference, as we almost have 9.5 inches more with this tire compared to the factory installed tires. So I'm going to split this into 2 videos. So this is our first part. The second one, we're going to dive into how this is going to affect your speedometer and odometer. So go ahead and click on the next video for part 2.